All right, let's continue our series on the muscular system, and today we're going to talk about something called group action. Group actions. The reality is that muscles don't work alone. Muscles generally work together. And when they work together in groups, which is very common, or pairs, which is also very common. And there's three basic group actions. So we're going to start with the most common. I'm going to label that letter A. And that is something called the antagonistic pair. Whoa, missed my line. Now, obviously, since I called it the antagonistic pair, I don't know, I think the muscles are going to work together in twos. Okay? And what's nice is if you look at any joint, elbow, wrist, fingers, there's always muscles on one side of the joint, and there's muscles on the other side of the joint, and then they work together to create group actions. Now, in an antagonistic pair, there are two different muscles. One is the antagonist. Oops, can't spell. And the other is the primary mover. So we'll make this one and this two. And it doesn't really matter what order or where you put them on the paper, okay? Now, the primary mover, let's drop down here first. The primary mover in the pair is the one that is contracting. Now, if you go back to all the other instruction, if this muscle's contracting, it means it's shortening, then it's pulling on a tendon, and what's it eventually going to cause? You guessed it, movement. Hey, that's why it's called the primary mover. That's very interesting. Now the antagonist, now watch, in this pair, while these two muscles are working together, if this one is contracting or moving, what does this one have to be doing so that this one can function? Wait for it. It has to be relaxing. So we have the antagonist is relaxing, primary mover is contracting. Well, let's do an example, okay? Let's do an example, and we're going to do flexion of the elbow. Now, for any of you that have watched some bodybuilding contests, way too many people that didn't pay attention in high school biology class, they believe flexion is the contraction of a muscle. That is incorrect. Flexion is the motion caused around certain joints. And what this is a specific movement that means decreasing the angle of a joint. So watch. Here's my elbow, straight out. Watch this. I know you can't see the whole thing. Look, here's my elbow, straight out. What is the angle of my arm right now? For you math people out there? 180. Very good. Now, watch. If I go like this, here, let me do it this way. So it's 180. If I go like this, you can see the angle of my elbow is decreasing. So there's 180, and then I'll decrease it to 90, and then I can actually go through the full range. Now, it's not going to be able to go flat to zero because muscles are going to get in the way, but flexion of the elbow is decreasing the angle of a joint. So if we look at this, let's do the antagonist first, and then the primary mover. And I'll just keep it consistent with the way I had it in the instruction above. What muscle is causing my elbow joint to do that? Well, it's this one on the top of your arm right there. Okay, can't see it without the shirt. And I don't want to fully flex because I don't want to ruin this sweatshirt. This is a nice sweatshirt. I don't want to just bust right out of it like the Hulk, you know. So the primary mover in this case is going to be the biceps muscle. And its full name is biceps brachii. This refers to the arm. That's where the muscle is. This means it has two heads of origin. You'll get to see that. Now, on the other side of the elbow joint, so if you had, there's a bone there, there's a bone there, biceps muscle attaches there. What muscle's right over here? You guessed it. That's the tricep muscle, which is attached to the olecranon process of your ulna. Okay, so that's the tricep muscle right there. So in this case, this one's the primary mover, and this one's the antagonist. So while the biceps brachii is contracting, what's the triceps doing? It's relaxing. So we'll put that right here. So we got the antagonist, this is the triceps brachii. So let's go back up here. What's it doing? It's relaxing. Primary mover is biceps brachii. What's it doing? It's doing the contracting. So when the biceps brachii contracts, it pulls on the radius, and your forearm goes this way, decreasing the angle at your elbow joint. What's that called? Flexion. Decreasing the angle of a joint. Anytime that happens, that's flexion. So that's basically how it works. But it's pretty exciting here. Watch this. There's a reason why muscles work in pairs or work together. It's so that you can undo something that you just did. Or did, I was just kidding. So the nice thing about an antagonistic pair is, watch this. If you want to do extension of the elbow, whoops, right, man. If you want to do an extension of the elbow, the nice thing about an antagonistic pair is all you do is switch them. Switch what? Flip the antagonist and the primary mover. So in this case, if you want to extend the elbow or flatten it back out to 180, the tricep then becomes the primary mover and the bicep has to relax. Pretty sweet. Now here's the cool part. If you look at this on either side of the joint, what if both of them contract at the same time at the same amount? What'll happen? If they both contract, what happens if they both become the primary mover? Just pretend it's happening. What you can do, I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, you can. Is that'll stabilize the joint. That's if they both contract. So you can see your brain has complete control. Now, why do you need to stabilize the elbow? To hold your arm in a specific position in three-dimensional space, especially if something's in your hand. That is your first group, called the antagonistic pair. Lots of examples in the skeleton, especially around third-class levers right there. Okay, let's go to B. B, Synergist. Synergist. Now this is another classic group of muscle action. Watch this. Okay. What do synergists do? They do several things. They steady a movement. I'll give you an example in a second. Okay. They prevent unwanted contractions. This is going to allow you to have smooth, powerful control around the joints where these groups or muscle group actions are in play. And third, what it does, if you steady a movement and prevent unwanted contractions, you increase the big E. Anybody know what that is? We've done this a million times. It's not energy, because that has a circle around it. It is efficiency. Now, where's a really good example of this? Okay, the wrist. And in the wrist, we're going to look at flexion and extension. Flexion and extension. Now, when you look, I don't put my hand out here. Let me get my hand out. When you look at your wrist, so let's just look at the bottom. You can't really see all my tendons, but you can see some of them. The tendons that work my wrist, hand, and fingers, they're all coming from muscles that are on my forearm. Okay, and these muscles on my forearm right here, these are called flexors. Collectively, and there's a bunch of them. Well, we were going to learn them on our cat, but now we're not. So in flexion, watch, I'm going to turn my hand this way. Flexion is when you curl the fingers, roll the hand into a fist, and then curl the wrist. The muscles on your forearm were controlling all of that based on how much power is being delivered to the contraction. So you can do that. Now here's the secret. These muscles are designed to do one thing. Watch. If I tell these muscles to contract, here's what happens every single time. Are you ready? Wait for it. Wait for it. Watch. That's all these muscles can do. They can only do it the whole way. Watch. So if I wanted to curl my fingers, everything would go. Wrist, hand, and fingers all at one time. Watch. Now you guys know that doesn't happen. Why not? Because the muscles on the forearm, on this side, the ventral surface, and the dorsal side, this side, they work together as, you guessed it, synergists. That camera moved on me a little bit, sorry. Oh, well, guys, I'll have to deal with it. Okay, so this is what, if I'm looking at flexion of the wrist, this is decreasing the angle, flexion of the wrist. Okay, so let's do flexion first. And then it's just going to work the opposite for extension. So I want to flex the wrist, hand, and fingers, just like that. So the flexors on my forearm will contract. Well, what's the issue? What's the issue? The whole thing will go. I know that's not a science word. They're going to eat me up on the internet. The whole thing goes. What does that mean? The wrist, hand, and fingers all go at one time. Well, can you imagine, like, if you wanted to throw a punch at one of your buddies because he wouldn't stop running his mouth? You're like, hey, I'll mess you up. Look at, hey, you would break your wrist. So you want to be able to just close your fingers and make a fist, but don't move the wrist. Well, what has to happen? Watch. When you flex the flexors themselves, something else happens. On the other side of your wrist, the extensors on the dorsal side will also contract. Oops, I spelled that wrong. So look at this. We're going to have combinations of muscles on both sides of the joint contracting at the same time. What's that going to do? Well, around one of these floppy joints where you got all this motion going from one set of tendons to one set of muscles, if you have multiple contractions on either side, you're going to get a much steadier motion, prevent unwanted contractions. So look, if I want to make a fist, I don't want my wrist to flex. I just want to make a fist. So if I use Synergist, or the muscles on the other side of my forearm, I can prevent unwanted contractions and get the efficiency that I'm looking for. So as I curl my fingers, as I flex my fingers, these muscles on the other side of the forearm are going to contract just enough to prevent my wrist from doing what? Oh, I wish we were in class. This would be much better. These guys, the extensors, are going to contract just enough to stabilize my wrist so it doesn't go floppy on me, and then I can operate my fingers and hand independently. And this is happening all of the time in incredible coordination from your brain and nervous system. It's amazing what we can do with this. So those are Synergists. Now, I want to prove this to you, and you have to do it honestly, okay? You have to do it honestly. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to fully flare your fingers. That's extensors. I want you to activate your extensors. Fully flare them like you're trying to rip the skin between your fingers. Fully flare them, okay? And then I want you to tilt your wrist, okay, as hard as you can. So I'm fully extending my fingers, and I'm flexing the wrist. Now at this time, just to prove to you that all of these are activated, try to make a fist. And I want you to keep doing what I'm saying. Watch, shake it out, shake it out. This will hurt my arm, so I'm only going to do this one more time. Fully extend your fingers. You should be able to see the tendons, like just like you're trying to rip them out. Flip your hand this way. Tilt your wrist. Now try to make a fist, and you will feel right in here and here, you'll start to feel some pain, and your hand's going to lock up like you're having a cramp. Because here's the thing. You can't make a fist with these muscles if these ones are fully contracted. It's unbelievable. Look at that. Now, if you just relax a little bit, you can pull it right back down. That's to prove that you have muscles operating on both sides of your wrist to steady the motion, prevent unwanted contractions. Those are called Synergists. All right, let's go to the last group. Last group, really easy to understand. The last muscle action group are called Fixators. Fixators. Now, what do Fixators do? Their job is to stabilize the origin of the primary mover. Man, as I shake, that keeps moving. I'm going to fix that. They stabilize the origin of the primary mover. Now, why is that necessary? Well, think about this. Okay? The origin, by its definition, should stay still. But wait, look at this. I have a group of muscles called Fixators that will stabilize the origin so something can use it as the primary. Well, wait. That means some muscles are attached to bones in which the origin does what? It moves. So if it moves, you cannot use it as an origin until you can find a way to get it to stay still. Well, how do you do that? Muscles called Fixators as they work in action groups. Let me give you an example. The scapula. Look at this. The scapula is completely movable. If you don't believe me, get a younger sibling, lay them down on the floor, arms behind them, face flat, nice and relaxed. You can pick up the edges of their scapula and you can move it around like this. It's freely movable. It doesn't articulate with any other bones directly to stabilize it. So here's the cool part though. If you look at the muscle on the shoulder, okay, so let me, I really can't draw this because I'm a terrible drawer. All right, we'll do the scapula right there. And there's the humerus right there, okay? That's the scapula. This is the humerus. This is the right side person facing away from me. There's a muscle that's actually attached on the scapula that drapes down over. This muscle is called the deltoid. Now here's the cool part. Its origin is on the scapula. But what does the scapula do? It's freely movable. So nature had the intelligence, not that it's a person, just through evolution, that there are muscles around the scapula. Before you can raise your arm up from your side, before you can pick your arm up over your head, there are fixators that will lock down the scapula. Why? Why do fixers have to lock down the scapula for you to raise your arm? Because the scapula is the origin. By definition, it can't move. So the fixators will lock down this bone, and then other muscles can use the scapula as an origin and then move other bones around it. It's fantastic. Those are fixators. So you got three groups, the antagonistic pair, synergists, and fixators. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll have a question to prove that you watched it, and I will see you next time.